Hey everyone, Mr. Macintosh here, and OpenCore Legacy Patcher has a brand new version available, 0.6.7. This update comes only 2 days ahead of WWDC 23 and the announcement of macOS 14. Now I want to talk about macOS 14 with you a little bit before you install the first beta, because there's a couple warnings and things that we want to discuss. But after that, I want to show you what's something that I'm very excited about, and that's automatic application updates for OpenCore Legacy Patcher. You're going to want to stick around for this one. Let's jump in and get started. Let's talk about some of the major pieces of the 0.6.7 update. First of all, McCullough puts a little note here at the top. With WWDC 23 only a few days away, we're eagerly awaiting for macOS 14 to be announced. Do keep in mind that supporting new versions of macOS is an intensive process, so we cannot predict when or potentially if support will be added to OpenCore Legacy Patcher. Regardless, we're excited to try and see our old Macs if they run the latest version of macOS 14. Now, I'm really excited about the new OS, but there's always a little bit of a worrisome situation where you don't know what is going to be done in the latest operating system that could cause problems or issues for the developers. We're really hoping that that's not the case this year. There's only one way to find out. Once that's released on Monday, the first beta one, the developers jump right in and they get started to figure out what's going on with the latest OS. So we'll have to see what happens. Now let's go over some of the main features. Otherwise, in this release, OpenCore Legacy Patcher contains some noteworthy improvements. First of all, a reworked logging system. I'm a big fan of logs. As a macOS platform engineer, I'm responsible for the macOS operating system in a large enterprise environment. So when something goes wrong, what do? I go right to the logs, and that's usually where all the issues can be found and fixed. So it is wonderful that attention is being paid to be able to put some of this stuff into logs so the developers can figure out what's going on if a user has an issue. So that's a really great feature. The next is restoration of live text in certain Metal 1 GPUs, Ivy Bridge, and has, well, a NVIDIA Kepler. So what is live text? Live text is if you have an image like this and it detects if there's any text in there, you can highlight and copy it. Obviously, there's nothing here in this right admin icon, but you can see, look, immediately you can see the cursor changed, and you can highlight this and you can copy it and you can paste it anywhere else. So that's a really cool feature, and that's been restored to these GPUs. The next piece is there's extra guardrails for unreleased OSs, mainly macOS 14. So the way that the Create installer worked was it contacted Apple's software update server catalog and said, what is available for a full installer? Now, it was set up to show in blue the latest version available. But if that comes out on Monday and it shows up as number 1, that could be a problem for users. So that was changed to make sure that we don't have any issues where that'll pop up and show up for users to be able to accidentally install beta 1 on their unsupported Mac. And many more improvements and fixes in the listed in the change log below. So let's go into that next. We'll cover some of the highlighted changelogs here that you might be interested in. First of all, there was some fixes to the graphical user interface, or the GUI of the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app. For example, it resolved some buttons overlapping. There was also some window placement situations where the menu bar would go across the top of the screen and not render correctly. Also, we talked about the new live text support that was added here. It was previously disabled due to high instability in photos and face scanning, and that's now resolved. There's a new show log file menu to the menu bar. So if we pull up OpenCore Legacy Patcher here, we can see that in the menu bar up here, and we can go click on file, we can go click reveal log file, and it'll open the log file, and then you can right click on that and you can open that with console, so you can take a closer look at what the logging shows. You can see some of the logs that are written in here. And again, that's what you're using if you're having any kind of issues with patching the system. Also listed in here is, we talked about the support for macOS 14. Avoid listing the unsupported installer by default. That was resolved, so it only shows the current supported operating systems. There was also a crash when it was trying to fetch the remote catalog if the machine was offline, like Wi-Fi was off or it wasn't connected to Ethernet. It's also not going to display root patches if you are running macOS 14. So let's say you install it, you put OpenCore Legacy Patcher on there, and you wanted to try the root patcher. It blocks that because the problem is, and we'll get into this in a minute, is that we don't know what those patches will do. No one has tested that. The last thing we would want to have happen is that you try to install those root patches and something goes wrong on your system. So we want to try to avoid that. And there's many more back-end changes. And this is just showing you right here that development is never stopping on the patcher. There is always things and fixes going on in the background, and it's absolutely amazing to see the OpenCore developer team and the non-metal team continuing to work to make the application better. I really got to hand it to you guys. You're doing a fantastic job, and all the users of OpenCore Legacy Patcher truly appreciate it. Now let's talk a little bit about macOS 14 that's going to come out as the first beta on Monday. We went over a couple topics earlier in the patch release note talking about the possible problems with the new operating system. But first of all, we don't know yet what the dropped hardware will be. Will it be just 2017? Could it be even 2018? I really hope not. I think Apple's really keen on dumping Intel as fast as possible, but there's just so many 2018s out there right now. I just cannot see them drop off. So I'm really thinking they're going to focus in on 2017 for dropped hardware, but we're going to have to see. We'll know right away on Monday what the hardware support list for macOS 14 is going to be. Again, there was a lot of issues and things that Apple changed, and you can see all the work that was done on macOS Ventura and OpenCore Legacy Patcher when macOS Ventura came out. There was so much work that had to be done over the year to make the older systems work. I'm really crossing my fingers, hoping that macOS 14 will not have as many issues as Ventura did. If it does, and it can still work, if anybody can do it, Nicola and the developer team and the non-metal team can definitely handle this. And I'm really excited to see on Monday what's going to happen. But that comes to the warning again. I do not recommend installing macOS 14 beta with OpenCore Legacy Patcher on your unsupported Mac until we hear something directly from the developers. The recommendation is to hold off just in case there's no problems that are found right off the bat that could prevent problems with your machine. We'll see what happens on Monday. Now, something I'm extremely excited to demo here, and that's the new automatic update system for the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app. This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I know Nicola has too, and he was finally able to implement this with the developers to be able to update the application without directly having to go to the GitHub every time. Normally this message would come up like this, and you would just click view on GitHub and then download the app, wait till it downloads, then open it up, close the app, put it into the applications folder. Don't get me wrong, that's not that much work, but when you see how fluid this is, it's going to be really exciting. This is the first time I can demo this. It was added in 0.6.6, but now that there's a new version, you can see it live. So let's do this. So the first time we opened up the old app, we can see that there's a new version available. Then now the new button that we have is download and install. So let's demo this right now. Okay, all we need to do is click download and install. Preparing to download. Now it's going to download the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher. You can see right here that it says it's downloading 0.6.7 as the latest version. Once that's downloaded, it's going to then install it to the applications folder so you have the latest version. And we'll wait for this to finish. There we go. It's extracting the update now, installing. Now we need to type in our administrator password. The update is complete. See here, update successful. OpenCore Legacy Patcher has been installed and updated to the latest version of 0.6.7. Would you like to update OpenCore and its root volume patches? Now you can immediately click yes to move it directly to building the latest version of OpenCore, but we're going to click no there because we wanted to check the versions, right? We always talk about checking the versions in NVRAM so you can see the version of OpenCore that is installed on your EFI partition. But now we can go into settings and then click on app and then scroll down here and we can see the latest version of OpenCore on the disk. It's release 092 and it was installed on 5/8/2023. So we can return here. And if you need to make any settings changes before installing the latest version of OpenCore to your EFI partition for the bootloader, you can click on here. So for example, if you wanted to change the boot picker timeout for your monitor, if you're on a Mac Mini or a Mac Pro, and you can also turn off show boot picker right here. So we can click on that and then return. And now all those settings are set. And all we need to do is click build and install OpenCore. We'll click on install the disk. And now you can see here, note the blue represents the disk OpenCore is currently booted from. So if you had a USB drive or a separate hard drive with OpenCore on there, it allows you to pick which disk. But if you only have one drive, it's going to be really simple to click on the blue button. And the same thing with the EFI because we only have one. And there it is. You need the administrator prompt to mount the EFI drive. Okay, and there's EFI. It's installing the new files over and unmounts it. We'll click on reboot and restart. Okay, we're back up. Now let's go into the hard drive here, our Macintosh hard drive, and then go into applications, and we can see OpenCore Legacy Patcher here is there, but we've got a slight issue here. In previous update videos, we would just copy the new version of OpenCore app right to our applications folder. The way the auto updater does it is it updates the auto patcher in the library. We'll go to library, application support, Dartania folder, and this is where the new version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher is installed. Now the way it's installed when you first install it is it puts an alias, which is just a link to the application. But when we look in the applications folder, the old version is still there because the alias is no longer there. So all we need to do is create an alias to the new folder here, and then we're okay, because that alias will always point back to the Dortania folder with the application in there, and you never have to really touch the application or the link in the applications folder ever again. So I'll show you how to do that now. All we need to do is go to that folder again, Macintosh hard drive, library, application support, Dortania, and you can see how it was updated in here. All we need to do is right click on the app here, and then we're going to make an alias, and then we'll type in our administrator password. And there's our new alias. Now if we right click on that and click get info, we can see that it goes right back to the OpenCore Patcher app. And that's exactly what happens when we first install OpenCore, when we do it the very first time we create it. Now all we need to do is drag that alias right to our applications folder, or you can just drag it in here, whatever you want. And then you can see the alias is here. Now all we need to do is delete the old app, the 0.6.6 app, and then move to trash. And now our alias is in there, and we can rename it. We can right click to name it, or just click in there one time, take out the alias, and delete, and there is our OpenCore Patcher alias to our brand new version. We can delete the previous alias here, move to trash, so we just have the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher in the Dortania folder. Close these windows out, and then we can double click our new alias, and there's our 0.6.7, and we're good to go. Now, the best part is we don't ever have to touch this again, because this alias will always point to that location where the auto patcher is installed. And in previous updates in the future, I think Macola is going to look at if it finds the application in there and do a way to handle that situation. But for now, the alias will work, and it'll point it right to the auto patcher update, and everything will be fine. If you have any questions on this section here, just put it in the description below. Now that step 1 and step 2 are complete, and now keep in mind, we don't always have to install the latest version of OpenCore, but if any changes are made, I usually just keep it up to date, so I know that all the application, the OpenCore on our EFI, and our root patch post-install patches is up to date with the latest version. So step 1 and step 2 is complete. Now we can click on post-install root patch, and you can see here what we have available: a updated Terascale 2, Sandy Bridge, and Legacy keyboard backlight for this 2011 15-inch MacBook Pro. And you can see the last time we patched was 066 on May 24th. Let's click Start Root Patching. And let's relaunch this root. Administrator password. And you can see we saw this with the 0.6.6 update, that it shows the actual patch pieces that it is patching right here, and still gives you the full output of what's happening in the root patch process. Okay, rebuilding the kernel cache. Give it a second here. Okay, all we need to do is reboot. Restart. All right, we're back up after the install, and we can go back into Macintosh hard drive, and we'll go back into applications, and we'll see our alias here. Now notice that the app is now a question mark because we removed the app. All we need to do is just drag that out, click remove, and we can drag our alias back to the dock here, and there we go. We can click on the alias again if we wanted to keep that in the dock, and it goes to our latest version of 067. Now again, remember, I know this was a little bit confusing with the alias, but when you really think about it, it's going to be very simple. We don't have to drag and drop anymore, because the other problem is that if you had a previous version like 066 in here, it was trying to point to the old one, you would have to update the icon here to drag it out and drag the new version of 0.6.7 in here too. The alias will point to one location, and you don't have to change this piece here anymore. It's going to be really nice going forward in the future. And again, if you have any questions on this process, let me know in the comments.